And we are live tonight, April 20th, 2015, with a special edition of TL News Night. And, oops, let me see. We're going to bring you the latest news this month, but I'm going to start by letting each of our anchors introduce themselves. I'm Nikki Robertson. I'm an instructional technology facilitator in Limestone County Schools. And I'm going to pass it off on to Sue.
Hi, can you hear me okay? This is Sue Levine, and I am a teacher librarian in Atlanta, Georgia.
All right, Sherry.
Hi, I'm Sherry Dick. I'm coming back to you from Rossville, Indiana, and I'm a library instructional technology specialist here.
Shannon.
Hi, I'm Shannon McClintock Miller, and I was a teacher librarian in Iowa, and now I am consulting and speaking and writing full-time, and I live in Denver, Colorado now.
Jane.
Hi, I'm Jane Lofton. I'm the teacher librarian at Mira Costa High School in Manhattan Beach in Southern California.
And Alyssa, who's coming to us from the Bahamas.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Malaspina. I am the Supervisor of Educational Technology for the Parsippany Troy Hill School District in New Jersey, and I used to be a teacher librarian in New Jersey, and I'm coming to you from my hotel room in the Bahamas. Sadly, you get a view of my bed. The internet does not go out far enough so that I can be poolside talking to you.
Something new and different, Alyssa.
I know, nothing new and different from the
Well, we are all uber jealous, and we were hoping we'd see Alyssa from poolside. I'm going to do a screen share super quick before we introduce our wonderful guests that are here and take you into the purpose of TL News Night and why we bring this to you every month, the third Monday of every month. As you can see tonight, we are going to have wonderful guests from the American Library Association and the American Association of School Librarians tonight, so we're extremely excited about that and grateful to Shannon Miller for having brought this episode together for us. Please, if you have questions, you can either ask questions live through the video that you are watching at this time or on Twitter using the hashtag TLChat. Any questions, comments, anything you want to say, we'll try to monitor those tweets and your questions and try to answer those on air as we can. The purpose of TL News Night is to bring a live show to present what's happening in school libraries and to have a deeper discussion about topical school library issues because, as we know, what happens in libraries affect the entire school as a whole. And so we want to do our part in getting the news and the information out there. Also, we're the media now. So if you don't like the way the media depicts educators, librarians, etc., we need to tell that story, and we've decided to step up and tell our story. Please be a part of the fun on TL News Night. You've seen there's lots of guests from all over the country and even outside of the United States. So just go to the TL News Night website and fill out the form that is on there so that your association or group can join the conversation. Here's some of our superstars on the map. We'd love to add your state to this superstar map. And now I will take us back, exit out of the screen share if our technology works well. And I'm going to now turn the mic over to the incredible Shannon Miller, who put this great team together tonight.
Oh, thanks, Nikki. And we are so excited to have our special guest here tonight. I know that all of us follow what is going on and should be always in the American Library Association and AASL, the American Association of School Librarians, and so it's really important to hear our four guest story tonight. And I'm going to introduce everyone, and we're still waiting for one of them, but I know she's going to show up soon. The first person that I would like to introduce is Barbara Stripling, who is our past ALA president. Then I'd like to introduce Norton, who is the Executive Director of the American Association of School Librarians. And also Leslie Creedy, who is our upcoming AASL president, and she will be take office at the ALA annual conference, which is so exciting. And the last person, the last guest that we're waiting for is Terry Grief, and she is our current AASL president. And I had the honor of just seeing Sylvia and Terry. Oh, there's Terry right there. See, I was in my script. I didn't even see you there. And so I just saw them, and it was so lovely just to catch up with everybody. And I can't wait to ALA to catch up with Barbara and Leslie, too. So thank you guys for coming. And I'm going to turn the show over to you.
Well, hi, everyone. This is Barbara Stripley, and I am so pleased to be talking to you all tonight. We're going to talk about emotional and social connections through technology. All of us know how important it is that we give real guidance to our students and that we foster their social and emotional growth as well as their intellectual growth. The library is a safe space for discovery and collaboration, and when we invite our students to join us in the library, we help them develop the personal dispositions of self-confidence and perseverance and grit. It's okay to risk and fail in the library, and that's what makes it so valuable for our students. They develop social qualities, the ability to work in teams and respect the perspectives of others. So when we were talking about what we would like to share, we thought, yes, we all the time talk about the intellectual qualities that we help students develop, but we thought it might be useful for us to focus on the social and emotional connections through technology. The piece that I'm going to talk about is primary sources. Increasingly, primary sources are becoming available through technology. We all know there's Library of Congress and National Archives, certainly repositories of primary sources, but there are also the sources like Twitter feeds and global access to newspapers and certainly websites from across the world, across the country. And it's important for us to think about, as these students access these primary sources, what kind of connection are they making to them, and can they actually use primary sources to develop socially and emotionally? Indeed, that was the area that I worked on when I did my doctoral research. I was looking at the use of primary sources during historical inquiry at the high school level, and whether that helped students develop empathy if they had access to those sources. Now, empathy doesn't mean sympathy, and it doesn't mean that you agree with the viewpoint. It does mean that you are able to understand the beliefs, decisions, and actions taken by someone else, given the context of the situation. Sometimes we mistake it for sympathy. In the South, we say, bless your heart, but that's really not empathy. That is sympathy. It doesn't mean you necessarily agree with the point of view, but you do understand why people make the decisions they do and act in the way that they do. So I thought I would quickly share 3 things that I understood about empathy at the end of my study, just as tossing it out there for you to think about as you're making primary sources available. First of all, we know that empathy is not generated simply by providing access to primary sources. Just think about a photo of the Great Depression. If all we do is put the photo up there, students are left to make their own impressions, and they're going to make judgments based on what their life is now, because they're not going to understand the situation. The second big point is that empathy is formed by an understanding of the context in which the primary source was created. And so often we get that context from secondary sources. And I was actually surprised to discover how important secondary sources were when I was really looking at primary sources. And just think, if we want our students to understand the Cuban Missile Crisis, they're not going to really understand it unless they understand the Cold War, the nuclear threat, the Bay of Pigs, Castro, Soviet Union, on and on and on. And as librarians, we need to be cognizant that students will form their own judgments, but it's the context that enables students to form empathy. And the third big idea is that empathy is formed through multiple perspectives. And that's really important for our students to understand all the way through. They might think that there is just one perspective. And so part of what we need to do when we're giving them access to primary sources and secondary sources is to make sure that they're getting that broad view and getting the contrasting perspectives so that they can understand how complex the situation was at the time. So what do librarians do? Well, certainly we're going to provide access to primary sources that are well aligned with the content, but we're also going to be curators. We're going to provide the secondary sources, the background information, the context of the primary sources. And I know that's not a normal thing that I think of when I'm thinking of providing access on the website. So it's a broadened role of the way that we provide access. And I would say that we could also, as librarians, really help our students develop empathy if we surround primary sources with their context with the kind of questions that provoke empathetic thinking. Like, well, certainly, what does this source say? But what perspective does it offer? What's the context? What was going on around this source when it was created? And what do you understand about the deeper meaning of this source based on the context that you understand? And certainly I would say the best piece of offering primary sources and developing empathy is our job to combine access to online sources with the conversations that happen in our libraries every day. So those are just some of the things that I learned from my work on primary sources and developing empathy through access to primary sources.
Oh my goodness, beautifully said, Barbara. Thank you so much, and you're getting so much love on Twitter right now with hashtag #TLChat. So wonderful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Shannon?
Okay, girls, who's next?
I think it's Sylvia.
No, I think that we're really talking about students right now, and I'll talk more about the social-emotional member connection here. Let's move on to Terry or Leslie, because they're both, as building-level school librarians, I think they're more in touch. I'm a former high school librarian. I can speak to this from my experiences then, but mine is not as immediate as theirs is right now.
Terry, did you want to go next, or do you want Leslie?
Yeah, sure, I do. I was just unmuting my mic, so now I'm ready.
Okay, wonderful.
So my love of the librarian is reading. I've always loved helping kids choose books, getting the right book for the right kid, and so we started talking the other day about what's the emotional part of reading, because we think about reading being a solitary event, but how kids are reading now is not exactly the same way maybe that you and I did. When I was a little girl, I remember missing one of the big events in my life, and that's my brother getting his finger stuck in the electric mixer because I was behind the chair reading a book, and I missed the whole thing, you know. So I was a solitary reader, but now we feel like kids are more social in their reading. And so one of the things that we're seeing at my school in particular is the kids that want to belong to a book club, because it's not just about the book, it's about the social things that surround the book. And wanting to talk about books on Twitter, wanting to give kids recommendations. You know, other kids come in the library saying, "Oh my gosh, she said I had to read this book. It's so fantastic," or "He said this was the best book, and it was just a perfect book for me." So we've seen the change, I think, as kids talk more about reading and about books, and so then we start thinking about, does that change whenever they're reading on a device and not in a book? Does the emotion around reading change? So I did a little action research just in my school. It's not scientific at all, but one of the things that I asked the kids were if they did read on a device, and if they read on a device, how they felt about it, and if they didn't read on a device, why they didn't read on a device. So some of the kids said they didn't like to read on a device, which was in that recent Pew study that teenagers didn't like devices as much. And when I asked them why, they said they just felt like there was a better connection when they had the book in their hand. So we talked about a particular book, that's the Miss Peregrine's Home for Peculiar Children, and if you read on a device, you don't get the pictures, so you really do miss a lot of that. Hi, Kitty. And but then other kids said a book, they said a reading is reading is reading. It didn't matter if they had it on a device, and they didn't care if it was a handheld book, so or actual physical book. So I didn't come to any conclusions with my students. Most of them said that they didn't like to read a book on their phone because it just wasn't as handy. But if they had a Nook or a Kindle or an iPad, that they would like that better. I did just feel like the conclusion that I came to talking to my students was that developing a love of reading doesn't have to be any kind of, it doesn't matter where it comes from. It doesn't matter if you're reading graphic novels. It doesn't matter if you're reading fiction or nonfiction. It's just the idea that reading is an event that will make you, that gives you socially, especially some kids, gives them socially something to connect with other kids. So that's my suggestions on, or my thoughts about reading and the social and emotional context.
And Terry, I've noticed that too. And what I've also found is with the books on the devices, they have a lot more opportunity to connect that story with social media because you have those links right in there as well.
Right, and you know, some of them are so cool with having they'll have their playlist right in there, so you can click right on there and get the song that the couple's listening to the song and they get to hear the song. So, you know, I did think when Barbara was talking about empathy too, I thought about a certain book that we've just read. We had 100 kids read the Orphan Train book, and how that sort of talked about that, those primary sources that were going on, and then how that worked with the young girl finding out what went on in the older lady's life. So I think books are a good way to teach empathy as well.
I agree, Terry. With the writing too. Have you noticed that too? How it's transferred over into the writing, where the kids aren't just writing for themselves; they're writing on a website where others can then join in and get in on that program. So I think it's kind of combining all of that now, don't you? Don't you see that?
I do see that. Yeah, lots of kids want me to read their fan fiction. That's 100 pages long. We still have some with the Twilight. They're still going on the Twilight.
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing as you were talking. Like, it's not just about the kids like getting all of this information and being able to interact with Twitter and in all kinds of different digital ways, but like you just said, the writing and the things that they're creating. They can create now digital ebooks themselves, and they can create things that they can publish and share with the world, and it doesn't matter if they're in kindergarten or in 12th grade or in college, anybody can do that. And so it really makes it so personal and gives them so much ownership, not just over their own content, but also that reading experience that they're having.
I agree. I think that, I was really happy to hear you say, like, reading is more than just books. It's graphic novels. It's all of those things, because a lot of times people poo-poo the idea of, like, a graphic novel or a comic book or something like that. And It is. I mean, it's reading blog posts. It's reading, stuff on the internet. It's reading that fan fiction that people write. It's reading those graphic novels. Anything that can promote people to read is a great thing. And I like, Terry, that you mentioned that, because for some kids, reading a whole book is a daunting task to them. But, they can devour 100 graphic novels in a sitting, and, that to me is just as good.
Or they read my Dirt Right magazines from cover to cover.
Yep.
Again, things that I wouldn't be interested in. You talked about that as far as the interest level that's there. And so Alyssa's exactly right. Reading is reading is reading, and we need to get that point across to everybody. It doesn't matter what they're reading if they're reading. If it's on their device, fine. If it's in a magazine, great. If it's a blog, those types of things, because again, immediately they want to share with somebody, whether it's the person next to them or if they want to tweet about it. And that connection, when you're learning, it's very, very social. And reading, again, is a social activity, not just an alone thing now.
Right, and I'm looking on Twitter right now, and Jackie Merck says it's not silent reading in her classroom anymore. They want to build relationships through the text that they're reading. And she is from Illinois, so I really appreciate that comment, Jackie. Thank you.
I think we're just lucky we have all the options we have, that we have the electronic, that we have the print, that we have all different formats. And they all work in different ways for everyone, and I think we're just living in a time where we're just so fortunate to have all that we do.
Mm-hmm. I think we also can't forget, and it's funny because I was just thinking about this, because I was texting with Shannon, and I was like, I finally sat down and got to read a book. Like, I haven't read a book in forever because I've been working so much. But audiobooks also count, people. People forget audiobooks all the time. Like,
they don't forget, they just discount them.
Count them.
They say it's your ears, but it's reading.
It is reading. Like, and I'll listen on my car ride back and forth. That counts. Like, all of that counts. And I don't want people to, forget that. Me too.
I really love the audiobooks, especially with my struggling readers at our school, because it teaches kids that there's something there that they want. So there's a story. They get the story without having to get the hassle. And the next thing you know, they're picking up a book because I can find that they love this book. I'll find them something that's in their, I love the Orca soundings. I probably shouldn't say a brand name, but I love the Orca sounding type of book where they're written for teenagers at a low level, that they, my struggling readers, they come in thrilled because they finished a book and they said, and it's really good. And I said, yes, they are really great stories. So, learning to listen to a book, to learn that the story is there. I love them too. I'm like you a book.
Yeah.
Right, and I'm the same way. I have a 45-minute commute one way, so most of my reading is audiobooks, but then you also have to consider students with learning disabilities, dyslexia. It's much easier for those students to listen to a book than to read a book. To read a book is a struggle for someone with dyslexia.
Yes, I agree.
Hey, another good Twitter comment that came in from our friend David in Minnesota. As we were talking about different ways to interact, he reminds us about Goodreads, and I know we use that a lot at my school, 8th grade and up. We connect them with each other and with authors and things like that on Goodreads, and they just love putting their reviews there and reading and rating and comparing and see what other people are reading. So thank you, David, for that comment.
I thought about that, like the whole conversation when Terry was speaking, like last night in North Carolina chat, TL chat, I participated in that, and we were talking about like summer reading and getting kids engaged. And think about how many ways now, not just the different reading, but the communities we have, Goodreads, Leonasium, LitPix, all the places where they can read and write and connect with each other all year long. And with summer coming up, to remember some of those is really powerful for kids too. So Leslie, are you ready to talk to us now?
Sure. Actually, that was great. It was a great segue to talk from socializing reading to talking about how we socialize learning and information through technology.
and that's the piece I'm going to talk about, collaborating through Google Docs. But first, Sylvia and I, just a couple days ago, she's probably sick and tired of me. We had quite a few days together. Part of those days were in a leadership training. And one of the things that they said that resonated with me and was a good reminder for me was that the millennials, the Generation Y, who are in their 20s and 30s, have some similarities to the kids that we have today. They're drawn to causes. They want a purpose or a set task and outcomes and an expected end, so they want to do something that matters, but they also want it to be done. And due to education styles, what we've been doing in the schools that we thought wasn't working, they actually like working together. So it turns out that we were a little successful there. And the similarities that they have with the kids we're working with today, according to the studies of those kids, is that our kids want to make a difference and they want to invent something. And so we are moving towards this whole new generation that is just like socializing reading, we're socializing learning. And Google Docs has been really interesting to watch as a parent as well as an educator. My daughter is in 8th grade, and she uses Google Docs to work on assignments, but instead of sharing them with other kids, she actually will share her Google Docs with me to ask for my advice or my input, and it seems to be a safe way for her to ask for input from a parent without feeling like, you know, she's going to get the red marks all over her paper from her mom or some critical comments. And it seems to be a non-confrontational, friendly way in which we can work together. And my son is in 12th grade, and he started that way too, but now the stuff that he does with his peers, the peer editing, the communication that they do through Google Docs, and not only are they critiquing and evaluating and giving advice, and they're doing it in such a natural way, it's just so fluid and natural, but they're also putting on their headgear and they're going to whatever social site to actually have conversations while they've got the document pulled up, and they're all in their own homes instead of going and meeting at the Starbucks or wherever. And they're still, again, working in a group in a much more cohesive manner than I think when I was a kid and we were told to work in groups. And I'm not going to tell you how old I am, but it's been a while, and it's really exciting to see the change that is going on and how much more comfortable they are at getting feedback and critical feedback and taking it all in stride. And that is a big difference even from when I started teaching to today. And as a teacher, I think Google Docs is exciting because just even a couple years ago, think about how we try to work with kids to collaborate and to peer edit, and somebody would have to be in the item one at a time, and they couldn't work simultaneously. And now the way things work is that they can all be in there at the same time, and they can all be editing, and they can all be communicating and giving feedback, and that has made a much more smoother transition towards using technology. And I'm sorry, I'm like using my hands. You guys can't see it, but I'm like shaking all over the place because I can't talk without using my hands. The only good thing about it is research has said if you teach and use your hands, it's awesome.
Leslie, I do that all the time. It makes me feel good. I thought it was a Jersey thing, and they just look at me, but makes me feel better. We're connected.
Yeah, the main thing too.
They honestly did come out with a study that said that kids actually learn better from teachers that use their hands.
That makes me feel so much better. Now I'm going to quote it like constantly. You got to tweet out that study, Leslie.
I will have to find it again and share it with you guys. But so that was the beginning of my conversation with us. I just think it's really exciting the way things are changing, and just like socializing reading, we're socializing learning, and it's a good place to be.
I agree, and I'm going to completely mess up this name on Twitter. Mr. Vadovic's class, do y'all see that? Vadovic. His class, he says, if we're talking about reading, we also need to consider news. Teaching them critical thinking skills and instilling a need to know is also important as well. And I don't know, have y'all heard of the site Newslia? I think is how you pronounce it. That's a really good site if you haven't heard about that for differentiating the reading of news comments like that.
I fully agree. We use we call it Newsella. I don't know. Some people call it Newsella. Some people call it News ELA. I don't know exactly what it is, but I pushed that with my teachers at the beginning of the year, and oh my God, did they take off, especially the English teachers in the district, and they have just taken off with that, and they love it so much, that site. And it's great not just for English teachers, but anybody who needs to do current events, because you can take the site and really do the Lexile groups differently and differentiate instruction for kids' needs. It has gotten so popular that our district went and purchased the whole big thing for our students, because it has just been such a great way. It's all those Common Core standards, all of that, primary sources, which Barbara was talking about, all of that. It's just a really great resource.
Have you all ever checked out the Research Ready website evaluator?
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody seen that one?
From
Okay.
Easy Good?
It is really cool, and it's different than any I've seen, and it's free, but you can plug in a website, and you have on your screen, you have the website, but then you also have on the side the toolbar where you go through the evaluation step by step. So it's a great way for kids who don't even know how to evaluate information or websites, just to get started, to even start thinking about how they should be questioning information today. I like it a lot.
Leslie, can you type that into our chat box and I'll put it up on the showcase? And for those of you who are watching, if you click where it says participate in the show on the video, the showcase should show up on the side, and then you'll have that convenient link to click on as well. We'll also have those links on the wiki at the sometime tonight. Hopefully, if I get it. So now I think, is it time for Sylvia?
Unmute. That's me. Unmute now. Am I muted? I'm unmuted. Oh, good. I see shaking heads. I'm the executive director for ASL, so I get to work with adults rather than our students. But I have a high school librarian background and a passion for this field. So even though I don't get to practice some of these things on a day-to-day basis with students, this passion is there. And so as I listen to this conversation, what I love is that no matter what, it goes back to those connections that we want to make. And as someone who's been in the field for a long time, I know how technology came in, and there was this sense, oh, we could all kind of just go work alone and not have to make any of these connections with anyone. Everything was on this laptop, so why do I need people? But I think that we've really, that social and emotional connections you've been talking about are really a very big reason about why we're here and why something like ASL is here, to make sure there are strong school librarians. Because we all know that no matter how many things there are to connect us with, no matter how much technology, it still takes people. And we still need that intermediary role of librarians to connect our students with those that information, whether it's in print books or through technology or how, but it takes a person to make it real. I mean, I saw that also with the comment about with teachers. I worked in a state that had statewide one-to-one computing for the last decade or so, and I worked extensively in some of the professional development with teachers. And what I saw about that is that everyone loved it, because we all tend to work kind of in isolation. And the technology meant that I was able to start learning from people around the state, around the country, in ways I'd never done before, much less just the kind of connections I saw happening in their schools. And so I love hearing this conversation, that how important these connections are to the way we learn. And for ASL, some of that we've been doing recently. We've established the Knowledge Quest website. If you haven't checked it out, do go check it out, because it's what we want to do is not only give content to to school librarians, but we want to make those connections. We want to make that community, and so it's the Knowledge Quest community where we have people blogging there. ASL had a blog before; it was a separate place. It's all in one place now. Bloggers are there, and we're really encouraging you, everyone, to go make comments, to make this a conversation, because that's how we learn from each other, making those social and emotional connections. So that blog and the community that we're developing there is really important. I know for my own professional development, no matter how many courses I've taken, no matter how much I read, I've learned most from having people help me to engage with that content, and that's the great part about something like Knowledge Quest online, that we can do that, in addition to just other opportunities that we have, whether it's through Ecolab that we offer webinars and archive sessions from conference, because that face-to-face isn't possible always, but things like tonight. Look at the community we have here tonight. In fact, I mean, this is, what a powerhouse of people that I normally wouldn't get to talk to and know and share this information with. To start off with Barbara and go to Terry and Leslie and now me. And Shannon, thank you very much for bringing this together, because this is just such a great group to hear that enthusiasm and the ideas and know that this is important to us. I'm also kind of curious, I'd love to hear from this group. ASL is beginning to work on revising our learning standards and our guidelines for school library programs. And one of the things that when our 21st Century Learner Guide Standards came out in 2007, that was unusual at the time. You see more now, but I think we were ahead of the curve in 2007, was dispositions were included in the learning standards. That was a very important part of those. And when this group moves forward to work on this next group that will come out in 2017, I personally find dispositions to be very, very important. But I'm interested in hearing from everyone on, when we talk about the social emotional, for me, a lot of that is those behaviors that are shown in the dispositions. So I'd be happy to hear.
Okay, who wants to comment about Sylvia's statement there? Come on, everyone, jump at once. Sue, unmute your mic and say something. Wait just a minute.
Yeah, okay. No, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. I mean, whenever you have something like the dispositions mentioned, then, that's kind of makes us, who we are. And so if we don't have the dispositions in, then what are we really talking about, So I think it's critical to keep that in there. I can't imagine. Are they talking about taking it out? Nort, what? Can you hear me?
Sorry, yeah, no, not talking about it at all. I'm just curious on your reactions to them because they've been out for 8 years now, so it's almost 8 years. But they were a little more revolutionary at the time, and there are people who do not do a lot with the dispositions. This conversation tonight reinforces for me why I always found them to be an integral part of looking at the 21st century learner. Also, just in for the school librarian as learner. For me as a school librarian, and when I worked with students in a MLIS program, that was important too, to look at modeling those kinds of dispositions, because that's how we were engaging our students, and that's the way it was integral to our learning.
It is a very progressive way of thinking, and not everybody is kind of there, So, that maybe some people don't really understand it, but, it's definitely makes up it's the most important thing, the disposition section, I think. Because that's what makes the person, It's like, so I hope they don't get rid of it,
Anyone else with a comment?
Don't misinterpret my asking as getting rid of it. I'm just was looking for reactions.
Wendy, when I was trying to type notes into Twitter, I found that you have two great ideas. You have a great idea, then you stop. Then you have another great idea. And so as I was writing sentences, because I was trying to put on Twitter, I found that you actually were cutting yourself off in the middle of your thoughts. And so I just wanted to tell you that, because I didn't know if you I didn't know if you finished the complete thought about, like you started off by saying we are revising the learning standards, right? And so that was why I thought maybe it was going to be changed, because then you went into dispositions and I got scared. So that's where all that is coming from.
Okay, I'm sorry if I didn't come through clearly.
No, you're good. You're good. You're passionate.
And Sue, in her state, in Georgia, they've just gone through a really big shakeup in libraries. Y'all have all been changed almost to instructional tech facilitators rather than librarians. Is that correct, Sue?
It's still district by district. That's Fulton and Forsyth and Cedar City. It actually is a bunch of districts, but it's actually not my district. But
Right.
many districts.
Right. So I think that where Sue's concern is there are shakeups going on all across the country in libraries and big changes going on, and a lot of us might feel that ground shifting under our feet, not really know where we are, and we need to have that balance and that input from our organizations.
And we have to create our own role sometimes, because sometimes the principal doesn't even know what product you're supposed to be having, and so until you're in a district that really kind of redirects you into some unproductive fashion, you can actually be very productive and create a balanced environment and show them how it's supposed to be done. I think it's when people are not proactive and don't do that a lot of trouble starts. Although not always, right? Some people can just be the best and they still get, changed out into some other role that they don't find useful.
Right, and Sue Kowalski on Twitter is saying, weird, I have a harder time selling dispositions as what makes libraries valuable, and hashtag not sure why. So
this is Barbara, and what I have found in my experience is that a lot of administrators are very focused on data and accountability scores and all of that, and so you have to do an extra lift. What I found was the best way to communicate the impact of social and emotional growth was through stories. And I made a special effort to collect stories that really told the impact of what the library did for kids. But we need to build a receptive audience so that administrators understand the power of it through the stories that we tell. And dispositions are never going to come through on test scores. So we've got to prepare them to receive the message in another way.
I agree. I mean, now as a school, I think any time that, my librarians can tell me a story about how they've helped, or they can, send out a tweet where they're showing, this is what we did in the library today, or, pictures, all of that. It all helps to tell the story of what they're doing on a daily basis, which is a lot more than just, book checkouts and stuff like that. To me, really, I'm going to be honest with you, I'm not a huge data person. So, but book checkouts to me I don't care that much about that, because you could have like one reader that could skew your whole data, and that doesn't make you a good librarian just because you have a lot of book checkouts. It's really, how are you working with the kids? How are you interacting? What does your library look like? Is it a place where you want to come into and you want everybody to see? Is it, are you helping infuse the technology into the school? That's what I think a librarian is, not the amount of books that you check out on a daily basis or stuff like that. That's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm all about reading, and I probably now have just started some big Twitter war somewhere in the universe. But but I feel like there's so much more to your job than that.
Well, I agree, Alyssa. I'm sorry, I'm going to jump in on this real quick. I totally agree with telling our story, which is the whole point of TL News Night, is to tell our story. But I think we as librarians have got to get out there. We have to start telling our stories. And one thing that really helped me was week by week writing a blog post, this week at, and whatever my library was, and telling this. I think this is a drinking game. Every time you see the cat, you're supposed to take a shot. So, and it's helped me too. it doesn't matter if anybody reads your blog. What's important is that you take that moment at the end of the week to reflect on how you have contributed to student learning and teacher instruction. What positive impact have you had? And if you can't sit down and write even one thing that you've done that week to impact student learning and teacher instruction, then you need to really take a step back and look at your library program and what it is you're doing. And again, with Barbara, telling those stories and getting those stories out there and showing how the library is impacting the school as a whole, your community, your parents, your teachers, everybody.
I agree.
And also those, dispositions and empowering. It's all about empowering kids too to think at the higher level, and empowering them to, it doesn't need to be just you blogging or you tweeting, or let the kids publish their work, and have a library Instagram and a Facebook, and have them contribute to what they're learning, because those are powerful stories. And when your community and people around the world, and especially when your kids, because they're watching too, can see the stories of what their voice is saying, that's what makes a difference. And that's when you become indispensable in your library. And those are things that, we can't do by ourselves. We need our students to do. So I think that the power of, story and including those things that, getting them all to be thinking and collaborating and connecting at the highest level we can is what we want, not just for our libraries, but for education and for our schools too.
Right, and Shannon, if it weren't for librarians like you and Andy Plemons and Gwyneth Jones and Jennifer Lagarde and all these wonderful librarians who are willing to tell their stories and share what they're doing in their libraries, my head's only full of so many ideas. I need you, and I need the support of this community to be able to step it up a notch at my school and help my teachers and my kids. And so, we have a duty as librarians to tell our story. We're all doing amazing, unique things in our own library that we need to share with others and get that story out. So I'm so glad, Sylvia, that your comment brought up this amazing conversation.
I agree too, Sylvia. I thank you for that. And I also think that, sadly, I think librarians forget all the time because they're usually the only one in their building. Nobody else understands, usually either you're the only one in your building, you might be the only one in your district, and so you can't go to that teacher down the hall and be like, what do I do in this circumstance? Because there's nobody else there's not that many people that have that shared experience. So having somebody like Shannon or Nikki or Jen or you, all of those people is so helpful, because that's where you can go and learn from and grow from. And something like, this show and TL Chat and all of that, that's where people learn. Because I can't say to my librarians, well, just go and, talk to your other colleague, because they don't have that colleague in their room. So what I say to them, if they're looking for inspiration, is I'll be like, check out, this webinar, check out this thing going on, because that's where you're going to learn.
That's why we have a professional association, because it's a huge part of our plan that we're making a stronger community, and and the technology has certainly helped to do that, and we're looking for ways to continue this.
And I do think, Sylvia and Barbara and all of you guys have done an excellent job at that. I really have to say that the Librarians Network is probably some of the best free professional development out there. That, you really, the group of librarians are great about sharing their stuff and, not holding it closed up or, having to pay for it or, any of that. All of you guys have done a good job of really trying to bring it out there and make it open and available to everybody.
And just real quick, Marissa Martinez says on Twitter, well, how do you show administrators good programs when all they want to see are AR scores? And unfortunately, Alyssa, you and I know about this because you remember that Voxer that we had?
Yep.
Right. And so changing that perception is really one of the most important things we can do, because you know, in some of our schools, our perception is not so good. So we really have to work hard on changing that perception. And it's not going to happen overnight. But eventually, these administrators are going to realize it's not about the AR scores. It's about the impact on student lives.
But Nikki, I like the point that you made in the very beginning, because I think a lot of people are timid about sharing their story because they do see awesome people like Shannon and Jennifer and John and Andy sharing these things daily or right after an event happened. It's like, you know, what do I have to add to this conversation? But your point that you need to be doing the reflection. And so as long as you're reflecting, making it public, you don't know who it's going to help. And so as long as you're reflecting for yourself and for your students and for your program, it's powerful because it can only make you a better educator.
100% agree. 100%. Well,
one more thing. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
One more thing that I want to mention, because it was a point that was brought up when you were talking about, like, how do you get teachers past those, you know, administrators past those AR scores. The biggest thing that I always say is invite them in to see what you do on a daily basis. I know that scares some of you guys, but you got to get past that, because honestly, that invite them in to see, because that changes the perception right away. They don't understand what librarians do. So have them come in, have them spend some time, have them see what's going on in your library, and then after 10 minutes in your library, they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you did all of that in, you know, in such a short period of time." That changes their perception really quickly. But you got to invite them in, because that's a huge part of it.
Can I add one other thing, and that is that one trick that I've learned is that I figure out what is most important to the administrator. So if the administrator really cares about AR scores, then I not only give AR scores, but I give a story with it. And I wrap it in a program that I'm really excited about that has a huge impact on reading. And as soon as you help administrators understand that what you're doing helps them look better to their parents and their teachers and their community, then all of a sudden they start being more receptive to what you can contribute.
I agree. We got to change those perceptions. So we have
all about letting it know.
And Barbara, to what you just said, Jennifer Lagarde did just such a good presentation on it, and I think that was my biggest takeaway, was find out, you know, what is important to your administrator. And my principal's priority is my priority. And Jennifer taught me that, and so when I talk to her, she feels confident that I'm going to value her priorities and take care of them. And so thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Jennifer Lagarde. It never would have occurred to me, but, you know, they're the leader of the school, so we need to care about their priorities and be a team player. So 2 thumbs up for you for reminding us again.
So, Shannon, should we go in and do just a super quick review of what's happened so far this month in libraries?
Sure. Right.
Okay. I think I'm up first for that, so I'm going to do the screen share real quick. And I think Jane is up last. Let's see. All right. So, and speaking of Shannon, Shannon is all over the place, as she always is. Came to us on the first Monday of every month at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. TL Virtual Cafe brings you a free webinar series, and this one was just amazing. Stories from our maker spaces put together by, again, our wonderful Shannon Miller. And you can see that she had a whole lineup of special show and tells from some of our favorite librarians around the country. And so we were able to learn so much about maker spaces here, and I'm just going to go through this really quickly, but I encourage you to go to the TL Virtual Cafe and watch this in its entirety. I really loved this slide where the teachers are the ones making, not just the students, because sometimes teachers are very scared and intimidated about getting their hands on things and trying new things, but the library can be that safe place for them to come in and experiment and get excited and start talking to each other about, oh, I could do this in my class with this, and I could do that with my class in this, and I could use it in my curriculum this way. And again, you know, I'm in love with Andy Clemens. He is just amazing and does wonderful things. And before I move on to what happened on TL Chat last week, I do have to brag on our very own Sue Levine, who just was awarded the Fulbright Distinguished Awards in Teaching Program Scholarship.
Yay, Sue!
And we'll be going to where again, Sue?
So I'll be going to New Zealand, to Wellington, but I have to say I found out there's some papers I have to fill out first. So, like, I'm not official yet. I have to fill out my little forms, and then I'll be official. But I'll be there for 4 months studying how to make libraries more inclusive and accessible to special needs students, because I have a very high special needs population at my school, like 23%. So that's my research topic.
All
Very
right,
exciting.
Sherry, you had just a brief review of what happened on TL Chat last week.
Absolutely.
The second Tuesday of each month.
Yes, the TL Chat topic this month was brought to you by Linda Squared, so hopefully you're following both of them on Twitter. We had Linda from Missouri and Linda from Maui, so not just the L's but the M's. The topic was digital citizenship, and boy, is that a hot topic right now. And I really encourage you to read the archives, because we began with questions about defining what digital citizenship means, and then moved on to what does that look like in your school, and how are you facilitating teaching digital citizenship in your library and in the classrooms, and what types of resources are being used, and how are you working with your administration and other teachers to ensure that this isn't being taught in isolation, because I think we talk about it being this course that kids can take, and that really just means nothing whatsoever. You know, we have them reading in all classes. They need to be good digital citizenship students and practicing that all the time in all their classes, and how to encourage that. The biggest shout out that seemed to happen all night long was for Common Sense Media, and just not enough good could even be said. Over and over again, those were the resources that we seem to be using and sharing and putting together, because they're just such high quality resources that are very relatable for the teachers to use as well. I really encourage you to check out the archives. Again, it's there on the Wikispace, and I think actually there's even a nerf of it, so you can follow through it live, and that's a good way to experience the Twitter chat if you happen to miss out on that.
Thank you, Sherry. And Jane, I think you were going to see if there was some upcoming library news to share, and I'm pretty sure that our guest probably has some upcoming library news to share as well.
Okay, I have 3 things I'll be real quick with. One is there's going to be a Library 2.015 Spring Summit, and the theme is the Emerging Future Technology and Learning, and that's online on April 30th, and as I said, it's free. It should be a lot of wonderful sessions. Also related to libraries, the Google Education on Air is having a free conference May 8th and 9th. There's going to be panels and keynotes on May 8th, and a lot of concurrent sessions from teachers and so on the 9th, and that's also free. And I'll post those links in on Twitter right after this session. And another thing, we were talking about reading. Every summer, Sync Audio offers throughout the summer free audiobooks, and it starts May 7th. And they always pair them. It's always there's a theme of the week, and there's a free YA book and a paired classic. And I've collected wonderful audiobooks from them, and you need to go on at the right week to get them. And so that's starting May 7th.
Yeah, Jane, they are great.
The promo materials look great, too. I'm looking at the posters to download. I mean, they've done it all for you. Just promote it and get your students using it.
Yeah, they're great. So I will pass the mic back.
And we have 1 minute left, but we will always go over whenever it's a wonderful conversation. So I would like for each of our guests to have the final say. So whatever order you want to jump in.
I can start. If we're talking about special events, it's really neat. In November, AASL will have their national conference, but we are going to have administrators invited, and they get to come for free. And I think that's a really exciting opportunity to connect with what Barb was speaking about, and actually what we all were talking about, helping them understand what the modern child needs or what today's kids need. So I think there's going to be a lot of fun, and it's really going to change what we see at conference.
I love that. Just let me tell you how much I love that, Leslie.
Terry, did you have any final words?
Well, sure, of course I do. So I just wanted to mention that this is School Library Month, and if you all haven't seen well, I can't think what it's called now. What's it called? Help me, Sylvia.
PSA.
The PSA. Yes, the PSA by Julianne Moore. It's fantastic, and this might be a good way to start the conversation with your administrator. Sometimes it's hard for us as librarians to go into. We're kind of have the personality sometimes that we are not the kind to brag on ourselves, and we want everybody to notice without us telling them that they should notice. So maybe starting some conversations around the School Library Month, say, hey, you know, this is School Library Month. Why don't you come up? We're going to have a celebration, and kind of that may be a way to ice break and get somebody in there that maybe you're not comfortable with in the first place. I know that probably all of this on this event tonight have not felt like that, but you know that there are lots of librarians that are a little bit more timid and maybe would be afraid to start that conversation. So this might be an easy way to start it with just that starting out and saying, hey, have you seen that Julianne Moore PSA that we put out, and let people talk about School Library Month.
Awesome. Thank you very much. I'm going to, let's see, go to Sylvia next.
I know you're running out of time, and I have incredible ASL leadership. I already told you about our national conference and School Library Month, and so I will just remind everyone that it's all out there on the ASL website, and I hope to see a lot of people in person at the conference in November, if not before.
Wonderful. And Barbara, will you finish up the night for us?
Oh my, I was actually going to congratulate everyone on contacting their legislators about the ESEA.
Yes.
And to let you know that there are pieces of it. We didn't get everything we wanted, but pieces of it that are going to be in amendments that are offered, and that's going to broaden the perspective beyond the 22 states that were in that original HELP committee. So there will come a call, and we have to just inundate our legislators with what we know our kids need. So pay attention to that, and I think together we can really make a difference for our kids. And now is the time.
I agree. Thank you all so much for being here. Do know I've had several tweets about posting the links. Those will be up on the wiki soon, hopefully this evening, if not tomorrow. And I'm going to let Shannon take us out. I think, Sherry, you were signed up, but Shannon has just been so amazing and wonderful to put this show together, and she's also gotten our guests together for our very last show of the season, which is next month. And so I'm going to let her tell you what to look forward to next month on TL News Night.
Okay, thanks, Nikki, and thank you for joining us, our special guest, and everybody, and especially Alyssa from the Bahamas. Way to go, Alyssa. And so I can't wait to see everybody at ALA and at ISTE and at AASL, all of those things coming up. And next month in May, for those of you who have been to School Library Journal Summit, you've heard our dear friend Michelle Ludula as she speaks to different publishers and companies about the different trends and things that are coming. And so there's always a lot of questions after the summit that people a lot of Twitter and a lot of conversations around the things that we speak about. So we thought it would be fun to continue that conversation. And so we're going to have some special guests from some of the, I won't tell you who yet, I'll surprise you, from some of the publishers that we all love and work with for our kids. And so that's going to be really great. I'm excited to have Michelle on the show too. So that will be in May. So thank you everybody for joining us, and just continue the conversation on Twitter at @TLChat. And I was just looking at some of the tweets, and I'm super excited to not only watch the show again, but also just to look through all the tweets from tonight. So have a great night, and as you're kind of, finishing up school and wrapping things up the next couple of months, enjoy and have fun. So thank you for joining us.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so much for joining.
Good night.
We'll see you 24/7 on TL Chat. Bye-bye.